Welcome to the Empowering Transformation series, How to Release Stress and Past Trauma, Have a Peaceful Mind, and Have the Power to Move Forward. I'm so happy today to have Dr. Porter with us. Dr. Jason Porter is a 2003 graduate of the Southwest College of Naturopath Medicine in Tempe, Arizona, of course in USA. Dr. Porter education and professional training continues through organizations including the Arizona Naturopath Medical Association, the Naturopathic Association of Therapeutic Injection, the American College of Advancement of Medicine, and the International Society of Neurofeedback and Regulation, and board-certified neurotherapist, and a nationally certified IV chelation specialist. Dr. Porter has been a supervising physician at Southwest College of Naturopath Medicine, where he taught methods of treatment of chronic pain conditions and disease prevention. He is the co-founder of East Valley Naturopath Doctors, Global Health Stem Cell Therapy, and of Optimal Brain Performance and Training. In his private practice, Dr. Porter focuses on the treatment and recovery from chronic illness by restoring function to the endocrine, immune, and central nervous systems. He has developed a unique process for evaluating and treating chronic illness that has allowed many chronically ill patients to begin to recover from hopelessness and complex conditions. Dr. Porter is a co-owner of East Valley Naturopath Doctors, the largest naturopathic medical center serving the East Valley, and the first clinic to introduce stem cell therapy in the East Valley for the use of regenerative therapies and restoration from chronic illness. Dr. Porter is a firm believer that a doctor's education is ongoing. Dr. Porter has advanced training courses in hyperbaric oxygen therapy, neurofeedback, physical manipulation, single and multipass ozone therapy, nutrient IV therapy, platelet-rich plasma, prolotherapy, IV chelation therapy, environmental medicine, Lyme disease, sports medicine, and nutrient amino acid therapies for optimal brain functioning. Get that brain working. Dr. Porter resides in Gilbert, Arizona, USA, with his wonderful wife, 5 children, 1 awesome daughter-in-law, and 3 very cute granddaughters. Welcome, welcome, Dr. Porter. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you, LoriKay. I'm glad to be here.
Today, I know we are going to talk about chronic illness and natural treatment. And for those listeners who don't have that specific stressor, I think they will still glean some important information while we talk about gut-brain connection and electromagnetic frequencies and things like that. But to begin, let's educate our audience to what the definition of a highly sensitive person. What is that?
Well, a highly sensitive person describes a trait we see in a handful of patients or individuals within the population. They are, sometimes we might tend to call them super sensors. They pick up on the energy of things around them, particularly people. So if there's a lot of negative energy in the people around them, they can feel that. Sometimes they feel that in their gut or their stomach, or maybe in their heart, and sometimes in their brain even. The problem is in the sensing, it becomes overstimulating, and then that can become overwhelming, and in the end also exhausting to them. And so again, it's really important for them to have positive things in their life, positive relationships, and feel good themselves, so that they can have some ability to feel normal and not be overwhelmed by these, or overstimulated by these things that are around them in the environment.
Yeah, it was interesting when we were in your office and you're like, are you guys HSPs? And I'm like, I don't know. And then once you said the definition, I'm like, oh, totally. I just didn't know the definition, that there was a group of people labeled that. I'm like, okay, yeah, chalk me up for that label. But can you tell us what DOES stands for, the DOES, when it's concerning the highly sensitive person?
DOES is an acronym, and that acronym, and I'm just going to refer to my notes real quick, that acronym describes, 1D stands for depth of processing. And so again, in the processing, there's a greater sense of processing things in a deeper way. And so again, it goes deeper into the system. They're more aware of the things that is around them and that it's going on around them. And so some people may be walking through a crowd of people and not notice anything. Others can be picking up on, again, all sorts of pieces of information without it even being said or spoken. And so again, they just process much deeper and feel much deeper because of that. O stands for overstimulation. Well, there's a tendency because of this depth of processing to become easily overstimulated. And because they noticed every little thing, again, they're paying attention to too many details. And all those details come together. And again, when you're trying to pay attention to everything, it's really hard to really just be present in the moment. Again, that's where we feel like meditation and learning to be, present can be very helpful when we're overstimulated. But again, highly sensitive persons or individuals are easily overstimulated. E stands for the emotional reactivity and empathy. Interestingly, studies show that highly sensitive persons, when they're observing somebody else in the environment around them, whether that person's having a joyful moment or a very negative moment, a highly sensitive person, their brain activity will show the exact areas of activity as the person who's having joy or distress. And so again, for them, they're living that experience. And that seems very interesting, as again, it's a real indicator when you look at imaging that people do have real empathy for those around them without actually being present and experiencing it, themselves, but they're really feeling it. So again, their emotional activity is very high. And that's great. That makes them very sensitive individuals and very empathetic individuals. And then S is just for sensing the subtle. Again, there's just subtle things within the environment. Again, with individuals, they'll just walk in the room and go, you know what? John looks like, and he's depressed or stressed or angry. And others will be like, he looks fine to me. Okay. Even our highly sensitive people, they pick up on the subtleties within changes in the environment and may even suggest and say, again, they're not electricians, but they'll say, you know what, it looks to me like that light bulb is going to go out in 2 days. I can hear it buzzing. And so they can pick up on information in the environment that most people aren't even aware about or even familiar with. So yeah, it describes, again, the way to describe some of those traits. And
yes.
those,
Yeah. No, and some of the things that I have done to help me with those challenges, and this might sound really weird, I have worn glasses that I put duct tape over so that I could only see out this much as I was going through the house. I had to block out the stimulus from my periphery. And
that makes perfect sense. And, I think finding ways to adapt to that when we're feeling overstimulated and getting in too much information, certainly reducing that, either through sight or sound, or being, again, being in large groups of people.
Yeah, I don't do that in large groups of people. I do that at home.
Yes. Okay. Yes. No, absolutely. Now, being in a public situation where there's a lot of people, or even having a lot of family over, people say it can be very overwhelming. And so I say, well, I can handle about an hour of my family, even if you love them. Mm-hmm. But at some point I've got to step back and I need to rest because there's just too much information, noise, distractions and conversations, and that can be very overwhelming.
Yes. So, and I find with myself as well that I have amazing earplugs that I use because I can just hear too much. And let's see, what's the other thing that I do? Well, I definitely meditate. I have to turn my brain off. I have to go lay down in my room and just relax. And I found that I turned into a rescuer as I had over empathy for everybody. And the little bit of energy I had, I was serving and not taking care of me. It made me feel good that I was serving, but it was this draining cycle. And I think it was because I just had a lot of empathy. And
we always want to encourage, individuals reaching out and helping others in all sorts of ways that we have, that we have opportunity to, or that we're, even asked to help. It's hard for a highly sensitive person, say when they're ill. When we're healthy, it's much easier to give. when we're ill or sick, of course, as a physician, I'm very interested in that patient. And again, hopefully we can say to them something that when you're not feeling great, it's all right to say no, at least for the moment. We want to get you back to where you can go and do those things and help out and feel like you're serving. And of course, we want to take away this idea that people should feel guilty or have shame about not helping. And a lot of HSPs, because they are really highly talented, sensitive, capable individuals, they are in demand. And so they're usually out helping people. And of course, everybody around them expects that they keep helping everybody at the same degree. And so again, it's hard to let go of that for a moment, particularly when you're ill, and just say, you know what, listen, I can't do that right now. I hope I can do it again soon. And I'm, working to improve my health. And again, the couple of things that you mentioned, one is, of course, the meditation. And again, in our encouragement, when I work with my patients, of course, we recommend things that allow us to rebuild what we call, say, the energy or the vitality of an individual. And meditation certainly is a key in that. And when patients involve and commit themselves and become disciplined in the meditation, they all report that they feel better. And then they have more energy.
So imperative
To give, or it just to feel normal for themselves, right? Not to feel exhausted, but then to step out and to conscientiously, not randomly, but really consciously give in areas where they can, that are really valuable, but also not depleting, to them. You said something earlier too about like earplugs, which is interesting. A lot of highly sensitive people, one thing they report is they have difficulty sleeping. They're very sensitive to sounds. And so even, I don't know if you've reported on that before in your own experiences, but highly sensitive patients will say, I wake up with every little noise at night, right? Well, as a physician, I think, ooh, that's bad news. Again, sleep is, for us, one of the most important things to recover as any individual, but certainly as a highly sensitive patient. Sleep becomes a priority. If a highly sensitive person doesn't sleep well in the night, they don't wake rested in the morning, and it really ruins their day, right?
Yeah.
And so again, everybody reports that and go, yep, my day is ruined if I sleep horribly. So, we sometimes say, and again, there's a variety of ways that we can do that, but certainly wearing earplugs, of course, I recommend meditation for bedtime. A lot of different varieties of ways that people do that. There are different apps, or people do different, even stretching or doing yoga before bedtime, things that relax the brain, reset the body. And of course, one of our favorites is Kundalini yoga, but anything where, again, you have chants involved and with the movements and or holding the positions, all those things help to reset the system, prepare for sleep. But, and sometimes earplugs help. And then if we still have problems, and sometimes I say I'll provide different natural medications and herbs and even medications if it's necessary to make sure that the patient sleeps deeper. If we sleep deep, it's hard to be disturbed even by the little noises, the creaks in the house, or kids sneaking through the house, eating at night, or coming in late.
What I found with children, so I had to train my children and husband differently, because when I was so exhausted, I felt guilty, but I had to put earplugs in. I was not functioning. I could not be any sense of kindness during the day. And so I tell my husband, Scott, you need to listen for the kids. Well, he just doesn't. But I put the earplugs in, trusting that either the kids would soothe themselves or get so loud that he would actually wake up. And regardless, they would still be alive in the morning.
Well, the good news is they usually are alive, and they are usually home. And
the adjustments happened, and things went forward. And
I have kids, and again, I'm a man. Again, men, we don't listen, and so that's true. We usually, our wives are so good at listening, we don't. That's on the back burner for sure. Certainly, though, I think, again, as you said, it's important that sleep is valued, and as set as a priority. And letting everybody know that that's the case, and then letting go of the guilt, because of course, if you feel guilty while you're getting good sleep, you're just draining good energy.
Absolutely.
So then you're going to wake up not feeling like you got much benefit. So hopefully everybody around us is understanding. I always recommend with all my patients who are highly sensitive people to review Dr. Aaron's work and her research, and to read her book, The Highly Sensitive Person.
Spell Aaron's for us, please.
Oh, say again?
Spell her name, Aaron's?
Oh, Aron.
Thank you.
And she she did the research, the original research on highly sensitive people, and that we understand also is related within medicine as a super sensitive or a heightened sensitivity syndrome. But again, I think when we we learn about that ourselves, and then we let those around us, our loved ones, for example, spouses and even children, that they begin to have a better appreciation of who we are as individuals, the highly sensitive people, and that they can also be compassionate about that condition. And that allows us to begin to have permission. And in promise, sometimes when healing, we have to take permission and say, I'm getting better. I don't care what you say. But it's nice if people allow us that permission too, and then we don't have to feel so guilty about taking time to rest and recover or retreat as a way to heal.
Yeah. You mentioned, we're going to do a little diversion right now.
Yes, absolutely. So many things to talk about.
You mentioned Kundalini yoga, and I know I presented that to you maybe 5-6 years ago. I don't know how many years ago, but I have not found anyone to talk with me about Kundalini yoga during this series. And I know that you read some of the books that I recommended, and you just mentioned the chanting. Do you recall what those books were talking about? I do, but I'd like to hear it from you. What do you recall from reading about chanting and what that does to the brain and things like that?
Well, we, of course, in the United States, of course, yoga was just introduced, in the 1970s, 1960s and early 1970s. And of course, meditation itself wasn't practiced by a lot. And some people have come to believe that sometimes these are anti-Christian or atheistic types of practices. And that's just not true. Again, there has been really hundreds. And again, when you look at meditation, almost thousands of studies done with meditation in regards to its benefits. Again, a lot of people practice, of course, yoga these days. And again, there's benefit with yoga and its ability to, again, hold positions. It's good for the health, good for the muscles, good for the range of motion. Again, it's non-traumatizing to the system. And again, people report that they're invigorated. And again, studies show, and even in our office, as we measure what we call adrenal function, which adrenals pump out different hormones, cortisol and adrenaline, that patients who practice yoga regularly have better adrenal function. So again, it builds up almost like it's charging the batteries of the body. And if we say the adrenal gland's a battery, yes, it would be. Because when it's not charged or it's weak or dead, again, patients are fatigued and exhausted and have a low stress response. So there's different parts of the body, the adrenal gland, even the brain, but these activities seem to be helpful. Now, when we look at like Kundalini yoga, it's kind of a combination of a few things. There are postural positions that people sit in, and hopefully they're comfortable as you're sitting in these positions, but the chanting itself creates different resonances. And of course, when we shift over, when we talk about resonance, we have to talk about also what we call specific frequencies. The body's more electric than it probably is physiologic. We talk about hormones, of course, in the US, and that's very popular treatment. Or we talk about vitamins and nutrients and how important they are in the physiology. But we fail to recognize how important electricity is. And of course, again, electricity is now being shown, and when we run certain currents in the body, we can heal bone, we can break up scar tissue, and we can heal from actually traumatic brain injuries. And again, studies such as SPECT scans that look at the brain, or what we call brain maps look at the brain, we can see that electric frequencies heal the brain. And so we know that frequencies have a chance to heal. Well, when you're chanting, you're actually just creating a frequency. There's specific phrases you're using, and they're creating a resonance frequency, and that's having a healing capacity. Yes, do we fully understand that? I don't think so. But when you look at how patients respond and what they report, a very positive experience. And when they practice it, and you practice it regularly, they say, I feel better. And when I do it, it feels like it charges me, and I feel like I'm improved. Again, physiologically, we've proven that in labs as patients have done these practices. And so we can see it, living out in the physiology. But again, obviously, a patient's not taking a drug or an herb to do that. They're just using sound and movement and positioning to enhance that. So again, from a physician point of view, I really feel like it improves the physiology. And again, don't have really other way to explain it other than it seems like it's a real boost for the
Yeah,
mood.
no, thank you. And actually, you have these points inside of your mouth that your tongue hits, and it hits the point that stimulates your pituitary gland.
Oh, correct. Yes. Thank you for
And your
reminding
pineal
me.
gland,
Absolutely.
and the
Yes.
hypothalamus. And so you're literally knocking on the door, and then it sends its happy juice. It's like, oh, you want some of this. And so
Yeah.
the tongue hitting
Correct.
the roof of your mouth with a set, it's going to stimulate that. And you have a physiological change in your body.
Correct. And it's probably why singing itself, right, generally speaking, is also a powerful tool, a healing tool also. Again, sound and resonances and these things, they obviously are affecting, based on the research with Kundalini yoga, they're impacting even the brain itself, right? Not just through positive feelings, but through vibration, right?
Yes.
Agreed. Yes.
Yes.
Exciting.
And I have done a whole bunch of videos of Kundalini yoga. I've never turned it into a program. I will probably try to do that since I have this summit now. But I do intend to give everyone a free meditation that actually the Alzheimer's Association uses to help their people get their brain back, to improve their brain function. It's actually on their site. And so I will have that be available for people. And the other thing I want to talk for a moment about, if people can't handle doing positions, or they think they'll be too tired, just watching and listening activates your brain. So if you are in the presence of someone else doing it, and you have the intent, I want to get helped by being in this environment, your brain and your spirit will allow that to happen. And it's really fascinating how just hearing or you imagine that you're doing it. You see yourself in your mind's eye that you're doing the movement, or that you're thinking the words, and that makes a change as well. So if you think, oh, I'm too tired, that's impossible to do. No, just be in the space. Listen to me do it on the CD that I give you, or however I'm going to choose to do it. I don't know how I'm going to do it.
I love it. And I think it's important just to do your best, right? It's nothing has to be perfect. It just has to be, as we begin to do it and we begin to attempt it, as we try to improve our sleep, we try to do meditation, yoga, Kundalini yoga. Again, it may feel new, it may feel uncomfortable, you may feel out of place, or you feel just too tired to do it. But again, as you do it, it just gets easier, and the reward becomes more apparent over time. Yes.
Well, thank you for that tangent, Dr. Porter.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I love that.
So back to the HSPs. Okay, what are the ways that they're different than others when it comes to illness and stress? Did we kind of talk about that, or should we just go into their coping skills they should have? What do you want to do?
Certainly, yes, I can talk about both. Well, again, something that we begin to, as we begin to recognize maybe this trait of highly sensitive people amongst our patient base, we also begin to recognize that some of these patients were also sensitive, not just to the information that was coming in from their environment, but they also seem to be reporting a lot of physical symptoms. They seem to be chemically sensitive. They seem to have a lot of stomach pains, besides, say, maybe anxiety or depression or brain fog. But they reported that when they ate, they didn't feel good. And so they become, very, very reactive to the environment in many other ways, not just, say, to people, okay, or external, what I call outside, or stimulus outside of them. And so it seemed to be that they're also really sensitive to the stimulus within. That led us to begin to say, well, again, maybe there's a connection here between highly sensitive people and, again, maybe what we call chemical sensitive or even environmentally sensitive people. And what we had termed historically as an environmental sensitive patient. We found the first connections, I think, in genetics associated with, say, mold disease. Often mold patients are categorized as what we call chronic inflammatory response syndrome. And what that means is, in the presence of mold, that they have a lot more inflammation than the average person. And so they feel bad. They don't feel good. They feel like they're dying sometimes.
You're describing me to a T 15 years ago. Okay. That was me.
Well, we feel like the most reactive patient of, again, towards a mold patient, they all ended up being, as we began to do this testing, they all end up being actually highly sensitive people. And so when we tested somebody who was mold reactive, we could say to them, hey, I think you're a highly sensitive person. And they would, look at that information and take the quiz from Dr. Aaron, and they go, yep, I am. And we could say to a patient who is highly sensitive, I think you're mold sensitive. And we test their genetics, and the genetics would prove that they're a mold sensitive patient. That was very interesting. And so it's very accurate. And so again, what we're finding is, as a highly sensitive person, you're actually also very sensitive to, again, your diet, the lifestyle, the exposures that you have. So in other words, recovery is not just about understanding I need sleep and I need to manage my stress and I need to do yoga and meditation to build up my adrenals and my brain and pituitary gland. It also becomes I have to keep a clean body. And so that's where we started developing rules or ideas to sort of support a highly sensitive patient. I think you mentioned earlier, you suggested earlier that there's a gut-brain connection, and then there really is, more so for a highly sensitive person than any other patient. And so, again, they're very sensitive about what they eat, and we found a few rules, and I'm going to share those with you, I think, if that's all right.
Oh, absolutely. Please do.
A lot of highly sensitive patients, and even more so today, if they're a mold-sensitive patient, they're also reacting to other toxins in the environment. Now, again, a lot of this is new, but for a lot of us, we begin to understand, and I think a lot of patients and individuals appreciate, but our world is not clean any longer, right? It hasn't been for 40 years, 40 years, 50 years maybe at this point. And so our food has a lot of things in it, and it's being processed and refined in such ways that it actually is hurting us. And a lot of your viewers and a lot of people that we work with, they recognize it. When I say, hey, I think your food's hurting you, they go, I think you're right. And so it's not like I'm telling anybody that they're learning something new, but we found that sugar, white refined sugar, as in use today, is a real enemy to this group. And all you have to do is avoid it for 1 week. I know that sounds impossible, but again, if you take and you avoid it even for a week, a patient will say, I feel better. My brain fog is less. I feel my energy a little better. I'm sleeping even maybe a little bit better. And even my mood might be improved. And we put all that together. Now, when they go and they eat sugar, they crash hard. I say it's like you got hit by a Mack truck.
Mm-hmm.
Wake up the next day and go, what happened to me? And so you recognize that sugar is an enemy. And that's a recent change environmentally. And it's how we're using and processing and the sourcing of sugar coming from beets, corn, and potatoes in the U.S. predominantly, as opposed to historically it was from sugarcane. And so that has
Dr.
affected
Porter,
them.
I want to, I'm having a little bit hard time hearing you, so make sure that you speak up. And then I wanted to mention something that I had learned. I basically have learned a technique that helps you not be addicted to things. And I intend to help teach people about that. And if there's people that want to learn, I'm trying to think about what topic of addiction to let go of. And if people want to learn to do it to sugar, we can attempt to do that. I've had people stop smoking with this technique that I've learned. And so anyway, I just wanted to mention that here and also encourage you to make sure that you're speaking up.
Sugar may be the most common addiction worldwide.
Mm-hmm.
So we could find helpful tools for that. In regards to sugar, of course, we know that sugar feeds yeast, which is another enemy we feel like to highly sensitive individuals. And so one of the things that we like to do in the very beginning is start to clean up the intestinal tract. Again, we feel like highly sensitive people react to their environment in two major areas. Of course, we've mentioned the brain in different ways. Again, the brain itself, and there's different parts of the brain, like the pituitary, the hypothalamus, the thalamus, the amygdala. Again, these areas of the brain are sensing, and they're in charge of helping understand, are we safe in the world we live in? And so these are the areas of the brain that are probably being affected and active as a highly sensitive person. And so we know that we're affected there. And we also know we're affected via the gut or the small intestine. And so when we eat, say, bad foods, or we have a lot of yeast or candida that overgrows in the GI tract, we create a lot of what we call toxic products in the gut. And in a highly sensitive person, and in a lot of individuals, but certainly more so in a highly sensitive person, they will always have brain fog with these issues. just feel brown, there's fog here, and you feel foggy. And of course, you'll nearly always have some degree of fatigue, meaning, and it may not be, I wake up well and I feel good in the morning, but I feel tired by 10 a.m. or by 2 p.m. Or, hey, I have to take a nap in the middle of the day, I'm so tired. So again, there's evidence of some degree of fatigue. But in order to reset those things, we begin to do detoxes and clean up the intestinal tract and going after bad bugs, including yeast, even parasites. And sometimes we can have an overgrowth of bacteria that people are more commonly known today as SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. So we know there's a lot of bad bugs down there. And again, our microbiome, our health, which describes the sort of environment of our gut, we're learning more about. But again, natural medicine has been treating the gut for decades. And of course, we've known these things for years. And so that's been a mainstay of what we do from the beginning. But we did notice, working with our highly sensitive people, that that's so important, and that they learn to eat clean and eat really clean foods. And that could be organic foods. And of course, foods that are void of their food allergens, such as if they're allergic to dairy or gluten. And a lot of these foods too can be very confusing, as many of them actually contain mold. And so even dairy can have mold. And so somebody will say, I feel good, but dairy really I react to. It may not be an allergy response. It could be actually a toxic response. And so again, cleaning up our diet in a way and avoiding those foods that we react to, keeping the bugs down and keeping good bacteria in, that begins to create a healthy environment that seems to be very supportive to highly sensitive individuals. So,
Dr. Porter, I want to interject here. So with me, according to how much stress my body is under, will determine how much I'm allowed to cheat. So typically, like right now with doing this summit, it's just, I am spending about 12 hours a day, and it's just so much stress. And I was concerned about my physical body, my mental health, and being able to handle this. And so with that extra stress, I have to be more careful with my diet. And right now, I'm only eating food that looks like the way God made it, period.
I love that idea.
God-given food, the way God made it, and yes, I eat beef because that came from, my body needs beef. And, brown rice. Yes, I cook the brown rice. Yes, I steam my vegetables because I have Hashimoto's, and the other kind of raw vegetables is hard on the thyroid. So, I'm cooking, I'm doing according to what's good for my body, but I'm having to be so strict right now. The other day I ate mod pizza that was gluten-free and should be safe, and I still reacted ever so slightly. And so my body, I can feel the reaction, and I have to be, okay, where am I today? I can handle this. And then also, like with nightshades, some nightshades are your tomatoes, your potatoes, your eggplant. Right. And I know you know that, but the audience may not. So like I figure, I've learned for my body, I can have tomato sauce maybe once a week or once every 4 days. Having that 4-day break is so helpful. One of my doctors gave me a book that was called, oh my gosh, I forgot what it's called. Darn. But it was like some number of days without food, and 40 days without food. I'm like, what? How can you do that? But it was just teaching you how to rotate your food so you wouldn't become allergic to something new. And that's where I learned the food families, and I had to stay away from certain food families completely to give my body a break. But I'm sensitive enough to figure it out in a slow kind of way. Where do I feel today? But yeah.
Those are great ideas. And often when we're trying to discover how sensitive a person might be to foods, sometimes say, just try fasting if you can, which can be really hard. But one idea is we look at intermittent fasting, a very popular idea today. Again, but a lot of patients report, I feel better when I just don't eat. Okay, well, you can only go without eating so long without it compromising your life. Agreed. So again, we get that, and that just indicates, hey, I am reacting to a lot of foods and finding ways to minimize those and or rotate them. And of course, I love the idea of, hey, when I travel, when traveling adds stress, when I go to conferences or even on vacation, I try to eat cleaner. I know it sounds odd. I don't, again, you're under more stress. And so to feel good and to be present with my family, or if I'm at a conference or whatever I may be in my travels, again, eating clean, I feel better. And if I start eating garbage, I feel bad. And so, again, we got to be careful of just, yes, correct, being wise about what we choose. And again, it helps.
For sure. No, I travel with my own food, and I remember one time I did not, and I ate a hamburger. I won't say from which restaurant, but I didn't eat the bun. Just eating the hamburger, I ended up throwing up on the hike, and my stomach just hurt so much because I let cheese be on there, or who knows, or maybe it was the tomato sauce. I don't know why, but it was just like my body couldn't handle fast food when I was having the stress of having fun, because having fun is stress too.
Well, yes, correct, and it's a good point to make. Again, not all stress is, again, there's positive stress and there's negative stress, and again, for a highly sensitive person, they feel it the same way. The energy cost is the same. Of course, so hopefully we have more positive stress in our life. Say we're doing positive things, and it means for us that we're living passionately, or we're living our dreams, or we're meeting our goals, or meeting expectations we have for ourselves, or else expectations our family has from us, or our co-workers or our employers, but we're not being exhausted by it. So there can be positive stress, but still the cost is the same in the physiology, right? So we need to support ourselves so we don't have other drains or things draining our energy, right? So we can give in ways that we want to.
Yes. Now, were there any other food recommendations that you have specifically for your HSPs?
Oh, it's a good question. In regards to foods, we do recommend and suggest like a food intolerance panel, which basically is the first clue that maybe you are reacting to some really foods in a really strong way. You know, and gluten is of course very popular in that regard. And again, testing has value too. Sometimes we test patients and they're not allergic to gluten, and people go, oh, good, I don't have to avoid it like all my friends and family. But if you are reactive, and then it becomes, hopefully, we're more motivated to really be consistent with following that avoidance, and patients do report they feel better and when they avoid those. That's, again, one suggestion. Of course, eating clean. We feel like today, because the world's so toxic, for a highly sensitive patient, again, eating clean foods that are organic, eating foods that are not genetically modified, eating foods that are not refined and processed with a lot of additives. So if it comes in a package, it's going to have additives and preservatives. And again, our microbiomes, we're proving that our microbiome is being affected by that. And so the diversity of the bacteria that are present that keeps us healthy and keeps our gut junctions tight, that's being disturbed by all these additives in the foods and the processing and the foods. And I think that can also be disruptive to both the gut, but also the nervous system. And again, that we call that the gut-brain connection. And and that's just a part of the gut-brain connection. It's a little more complex.
There's lots. With me, with nitrates, it's like death. It's automatic migraine, or MSG. Oh my goodness. And they will not always have to put that on labels. They can call it spices. Not fair. And so it has to say no MSG for it to really not have MSG.
We wish the FDA, which is the agency designed to protect us from this, doesn't always produce rules that are in the interest of the public. And I think a lot of us understand that. But certainly MSG, for example, has 40 different names. When, of course, it had a bad rap years ago, again, they just renamed it. So we all became confused about what it was in the food. Mm-hmm. And this happens over and over again. And so, of course, read the labels on foods. It doesn't take long to recognize we don't know what any of those words are.
They didn't come from God, people.
Unless we work for a chemical company. So I'm not a chemist. I'm a doctor. So, again, we have to look those up on Google search or such to figure out what is that I'm eating. And go, well, that's not what I want to be putting in my body, of course.
Yeah. Something else, this is turning into more medical, but I just love the medical. Oh my gosh, I love
me too, of course.
In fact, I didn't know if I wanted the summit to just be around medical things. And I'm like, no, emotional things. But so you mentioned allergy testing. There's a difference between a food sensitivity and a food allergy. So like, it'll show that I'm not allergic to wheat. Hello, I get really sick when I eat wheat, and it's a sensitivity. So I don't know if you want to get into IgG and IgE, but if you can just talk to people saying, oh, I've gotten tested and it says that I'm not, so therefore I'm not. Can you just say how there's different tests and how there really could be a possibility there's something there?
I describe this sort of like understanding, like even for the U.S. we have different branches, for that protect us. We have the Navy, we have the Army, we have the Marines, right, and we have the Air Force. So again, in the body we have the same thing, different immune processes that protect us, and of course we have different antibodies that are produced. So we do have immunoglobulins like IgE. That's for immediate reactions that associated with, say, eating strawberries or peanuts, and we have a swelling in our throat, and that can be life-threatening. Or we have an itchy skin after eating something, or a reaction that comes from a bite from a bee, for example, a bee sting. Now, those are immediate reactions, and in most cases, they're very noticeable, and when we eat the foods, we can see that. Now, the other responses are IgGs. Those are the most commonly elevations in immunoglobulins from food, but those are delayed responses. So again, when you consume a food, you may not have an immediate response. It could be hours and even days
4 days
after the consumption.
It takes 4 days to get out.
Right?
Yeah.
And then it could take 2 weeks before you recover from that response,
Mm-hmm.
before it sort of like clears out of the system. And so when you look at allergy testing, you have to kind of understand, am I testing IgEs? Am I testing IgGs? And when we really want to really know all the details, we test both. So we can have the evidence of both angles and both directions. We know there's other responses to IgM and IgA antibodies, and there are labs that test that within that they're available for testing. But IgGs are the most common ones we see in delayed, and that's the ones that usually we recommend doing for evaluating food allergies or food intolerances correctly.
Yeah. Thank you. I just wanted to have our audience be aware of that, because it can be very confusing when they think that they're not allergic. They're like, I got a test, I'm not allergic, and they just keep on eating something and feel like horrible.
I think we could speak the whole time about food when it comes to highly sensitive people. Again, why would you go and meditate and do yoga and do a lot of positive things and sleep, but then go eat garbage all day long and expect
because you're addicted to it.
Correct. So we've got to change habits. We've got to eat healthier food. And again, so we want to incorporate lots of positive things. And it's certainly, again, food is what drives the energy in the processes. It builds us up. But if it's all, again, we can say gross, if it's poisoned, if it's just toxic, again, it's also robbing us of energy that we need. And of course, a highly sensitive person is more sensitive to that. And again, they know it. So, doesn't take long to convince anybody that they're reacting to the foods.
Yeah.
We have suspicion of it.
All right, well, let's move into coping skills for them and maybe the 3 rules so that they can stay well. Obviously, I would think that we've kind of covered some of those things to stay well, but if you have more things to add. So improve coping skills and staying well.
Well, I think there's a couple rules that we follow. One was suggested by Dr. Eran herself, but it was feed and rest. Of course, making time, again, some of us are used to, if we're highly productive individuals, we're used to going, but making sure that we're getting good sleep, right? Improving in whatever way possible through meditation, through stretching before bed, reducing blue light exposure, turning off our TVs and our phones and our pads so that we can really start to turn off the brain, right? And that can be really hard for highly sensitive people because they think a lot, right? They have our time. We wish we had a switch, just an off switch. And
yes.
Then, of course, we'd hope somebody would turn it on in the morning. Don't wake mom. But we wish we had that. But getting good sleep. And of course, often, again, food can be a real support for us. We find in the beginning, highly sensitive people do well by eating smaller, frequent meals. If they skip meals and they tend to be more even hypoglycemic, that can really drain their energy and make them very sensitive and more reactive to the environment. And so maintaining a good blood sugar, again, is very important. Okay. Rule number 2.
Dr. Porter, can you talk to what that means? Because they might not know that they need to have fiber or fat, or to tell them how to help their blood sugar. Because I am pre-diabetic, and so I know that, but I don't know if the general population does.
Yeah, we can say in regards to highly sensitive people, Again, a lot of them are tend to be hypoglycemic, and so they can
Right.
tend to have low blood sugar.
That's what I had at
Interestingly,
first.
we do report or find that when patients have done a lot of detoxing in the gut, gotten rid of a lot of the bad bugs, their blood sugars seem to be much more stable. And so detoxing seems to be really valuable. And then when we talk about stabilizing the blood sugar, we also try to consider adding more protein in at breakfast and lunch. Again, you don't have to be a protein addict or do keto diet or Atkins. It can be simply just making sure we're getting about 15, 20, or 25 grams at breakfast and lunch. And at those dosings, that helps stabilize the blood sugar all day. And again, patients do report they feel better, in the afternoon particularly. Energy is longer lasting. Those are our main recommendations. And
Thank
again,
you.
to try those.
Yeah.
Other things that we think about too, rules for us is really try to support the adrenal gland. There's a lot of great herbs and nutrients that support that. A lot of patients over the years, because of their stress and being highly sensitive and or having, again, a lot of our patients may have had mold exposure or living in a home or going to work in a place that has mold. And of course, that's affecting them significantly, and or they may have chronic Lyme disease. All those things are draining them. And they end up draining not just the brain aspect, but also the adrenal gland. And so we begin to rebuild the adrenal glands through different nutrients and herbs and therapies, for example, electric therapies, as we mentioned earlier, and even, for example, neurofeedback, therapies to retrain the brain and help the brain rewire. But all these things are designed to help improve and reboot or turn up or tune up the brain and the way we respond to stress within our environment. And the adrenal gland and the brain go hand in hand with these issues that we discuss.
Yeah, a couple of things that I want to point out here. Since I've been one of these people, I'm 52 now, and so I've been playing this game a while. And I've come across meditations and things like that that have seriously reduced my mold reactivity. And then I have taught that to other people, and they have reduced their mold reactivity through these different procedures. And it's really quite simple, but you have to do it quite thoroughly. And another thing that I learned how to do is to drop into what I call a rapid sleep. And that's more easy for people who have learned how to do regular meditations. And I've learned to do about 4 different kinds of ways to meditate. But the rapid sleep, since I put in some time to learn the other, I can go into this deep rapid sleep, and I teach that to other people as well. And so there's lots of ways to regain your energy. Like I could, in 15 minutes, feel like I had hours of sleep and be like, okay, I'm good to go. But you train your body to do that, and you can drop down deep.
Yeah, and
so
I
anyway,
think that's a powerful lesson too. Again, the evidence shows that when we meditate, that we do boost, and there is a higher secretion of different hormones that support our energy and stress response, such as we can increase cortisol and we can increase adrenaline. And I think a lot of these things, again, that's when you're doing what you're describing. We're at nighttime, you're meditating to reduce the cortisol and the adrenaline so you can turn off the brain and sleep deeply. And in the daytime, when you're feeling that energy or that need, again, you're able to raise that. And of course,
yeah.
I think it's great that you're teaching everybody about these things, because I think they're very useful and effective tools. And of course, they're free. They don't require a doctor.
No, once you learn it, you just do it.
You can just learn it, and you can do it, and it's at your fingertips, or you have access to it 24/7. Love it.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so did we cover the 3 rules for them? I don't mean to always interrupt you. Did we do all 3?
Well, we talked about treating the gut, and then we talked about pieces about treating the brain. We have, yes, and
okay.
Sleep, and there's a few.
Okay.
Obviously, there's some other techniques, and we'll continue to expand on this and have availability in the future of just different booklets or different things that individuals can read more upon and how they do that specifically.
Wonderful.
But there's a growing evidence and a number of tools that are available. And of course, as you and we continue to work with individuals that are sensitive in this regard, we're learning a lot more. And every year we add more ideas and new therapies to recover patients and new tools to help them live get back to feeling their best and living their best.
Yeah.
So that's the whole point of this series, correct?
That is the point. That is the point. And, I want to have you address one other thing before I let you go. I'm so sorry.
Yes, absolutely.
It's like, I got you.
Yeah.
So you say that we are electrical beings. Are you concerned about electromagnetic frequencies?
Absolutely. This is a growing trend. And now, again, we're gathering evidence still in our office. And again, and as of last year, for example, we had the first US conference about electromagnetic field sensitivity, meaning we have enough data, we have enough experience, we have enough people that are being hurt by this, and enough doctors who are interested in it. So this is a growing area of concern. And of course, again, we believe that the electromagnetic sensitivity affects the brain, meaning it's affecting the prefrontal cortex, the pituitary, the thalamus, the hypothalamus, and other areas of the brain that, again, and the research is still growing. But again, I think that we need more tools. And I think anything that can, and again, our experience is, and again, we still need more experience to add to this, but I think that meditation, Kundalini yoga, again, I think all these different aspects, along with even electromagnetic therapies, are going to be helpful to improve that. Anything that will improve the adrenal function and the way the brain is reacting to stress within the environment. But the concern would be that our highly sensitive patients may be more sensitive to this. We have reported, and patients have reported, as we've worked with cleaning up their guts and they're eating cleaner foods, right, and not reacting to the foods, that they actually also seem to reduce and react less to the environmental electromagnetic frequencies. But understand that this is growing as 5G is now becoming part of what's in our environment. And so these issues are a growing concern, and we all need to be aware of these and understand that it could hurt more of us before change is coming. And so again, trying to find good therapies is needed, but also trying to reduce those exposures within our life. We do suggest that people within their homes turn off their Wi-Fi at nighttime when they're not using it, that you put your computers and phones and tablets at least 6 feet away from your head, while you're sleeping. And of course, that you try not to hold a phone to your head for long conversations. And there's a lot of other tools that you can add to phones and on your body to reduce the influence of those electromagnetic fields.
Yeah, I actually found a company that's going to be coming. I'm not like a distributor for them or anything like that, but they're going to be one of the speakers, and they have products. Now, I think their products might be, they're going to give us a discount, but I don't know. Look in other places as well. I know that there's many companies that offer products that you can purchase that can be helpful, but I found one that was willing to answer my email and say, hey, so.
Well, I think it's important to understand that these are real things. And again, we've treated these patients and it's really debilitating. So it's very sad. But we notice as we build the person up and reduce their reactivity. But again, our experience is that these patients who are EMF sensitive are highly sensitive people. So in other words, the group we're talking to is more at risk for having reactions to the electromagnetic fields, I believe. So, yes. So we need to find tools, and that's what you're doing here too, presenting.
I'm just trying to find tools, and I other companies I'm not associated with, but I can give people connections with Norwex. That's how I clean my house. I don't use chemical. I get sick walking down the aisle in the grocery store with where the chemicals are. I can't wash my clothes with normal clothes detergent, and so I found companies that have these things that I can work with and still live. And
agreed. So, yeah, we change needs to come, and we all, yes, those are perfect.
So, well, let's see. Is there anything that you'd like to leave us with before we say goodbye today?
Well, I love what we're talking about. Again, our point of view is always to do the best to keep the body clean and get it so that it can be like a battery that charges or keeps the brain charged and healthy. And again, a lot of things that you're talking about in this conference do just that. That's why, you and I are friends, and we've learned about those things, and we continue to learn about things. So again, our thought is to, when patients really struggle with these things and they're doing everything they can, they're not getting better, again, seek out the help of a good alternative doctor, a naturopathic doctor who can really get down and make sure we don't have mold in the home or Lyme disease in the background, because these things will keep, really keep us down. And so just understand that there's a lot of things involved here, but there's help and there's hope. Realize that there's always, keep moving forward. We see patients recover all the time, and getting back to their lives in many normal ways, but they're smarter and they're much more intelligent and much more proactive about keeping their health. And so, again, those are the things we continue to
proactive part, that is the key.
Being proactive.
For me, now that I got out of it, I have to be proactive about it.
Yep. Yes, it takes a little bit of work, but we know how to do the work. We know what work needs to be done. So that's good news.
Dr. Porter, do you see patients outside of Arizona?
We do with telemedicine. We can do teleconferencing. And again, those rules have laxed, of course, with COVID and other situations. But certainly we understand that sometimes it's hard to find doctors who understand these issues where you live. We get that. And so we're open to always helping anybody with difficult things, and glad to help. So,
okay. Well, good to know. I hope our listeners got some insights on how to have less stress in their life and can consider these different things, or have compassion for those people that they know that might be one of these highly sensitive people. Because we can't go around judging each other. We need to have more love, more love.
More compassion, more love.
More compassion, more love, live in the values that you hold dear, and be engaged in things that bring you joy and passion, and yeah, that's where we need to be. So, well, thank you again, and I will say goodbye to my audience and hope you have a lovely day filled with peace, love, and some laughter, I hope too. Bye-bye.